I hope you can see the slide on your screen with the heading as tips for making good questions. So you can see my first slide on your screen, in which there are two simple output questions. The first output question is based on a simple user-defined function in which there is one default parameter and one non-default parameter. And the output of this particular code is showing you 29 as the date of today and serial number of meat as 7, M7. The second output question you are seeing on the right of this screen, it is an example of list and dictionary, where we are simply creating a dictionary out of a tuple as key and list as values corresponding to the elements which are present as key in tuple. And accordingly, you can see the output here. Mukesh is the key, 1 is the serial number, Mohit is another key, and 2 is the serial number, Rajesh is the third key, and 3 is the serial number. So it is simple display of a dictionary. Now, first of all, when we are making questions, there are certain things we have to keep in mind. We should never frame a question which starts with something as, what do you mean by? When we say, what do you mean by, the child can respond back as, I mean like this. And you have to accept that answer because it is his interpretation of whatever you are asking for. In the same way, if we are asking a question as, what do you understand by? Once again, we are giving him option to write his own understanding about the topic which you have asked for. In the same way, if you ask, what do you think about? Once again, we are giving his view on this, how he thinks about that particular topic. So nowhere we are asking about the fact, we are asking about what is his interpretation of that topic. It can be anything, and you can't say that his interpretation of that is wrong or right. In the same way, our questions should never start with how about. And one more thing we should keep in mind when we are talking about differences between two different things or three different things, we should not let it open-ended, like what are the differences between. When we are saying what are the differences between, that means somebody will be writing 2 differences, somebody will be writing 3 differences, and somebody will be writing 4 differences. And at the time when you're marking, you will get confused who to get full marks and who should not get full marks. So that is the reason whenever such kind of questions come, it creates confusion among the student, as well as at the time when you are checking the paper, this confusion lies with you too. So avoid such kind of thing. Then what are the advantages or disadvantages of? Once again, it is open-ended. Somebody will be writing 3 advantages, somebody will be writing 4 advantages, and somebody will be writing only 1 advantage. And you will not be able to mark it properly. Sometimes we have seen some questions starting as, do you think? That also is the wrong way of putting a question. Now, what are the right ways of putting question? Instead of saying, what do you mean by, we should say, what is the meaning of? So we are asking simply a fact. What is the meaning of anything? Or define something directly. So we are asking about that fact which is available in the textbook or any other reliable resource on the net. When we are asking about characteristics of, so we specify, write 2 characteristics of so and so, write 3 characteristics of so and so, write 4 characteristics of so and so. If somebody is not writing 2, so we can give them 50% of the marks. So instead of saying what are the differences between, we should say write 2 points of difference between whatever and whatever. Then for advantages and disadvantages, specify the number. How many advantages and how many disadvantages you are looking for. So specify it as write 2 advantages or 2 disadvantages of. It will help you to check it properly, and child will also be clear about how many advantages or how many disadvantages he is going to write. In the same way, write 2 important features of, instead of saying write features of certain topic. So instead of saying that, you say write 2 important features of. Next, when we are talking about the paper, we should take care of the social responsibility also. So ensure the questions do not show any specific bias towards any particular country, religion, caste, gender, social or financial status of any kind. Keep a list of bad or abusive words in English, French, as well as German, because all of them follow English alphabets. To restrict them to appear anywhere as the text content of the question or expected output. It is very important. Otherwise, it will go in controversy. Next, it will be better to use all 3 genders in any gender specific question. So suppose you are giving a list of people in which you are specifying one of the column to be gender. So make sure that you include transgender also, because as per law now, we have to keep all 3 genders at par everywhere. Next, all the Python code written for the purpose of debugging, output, conversion to another alternative, or queried upon should be written in the Courier New, bold, or any fixed width font with bold. Remember, Courier New font width or fixed width font should not be without bold, because if it will be without bold, it will look like this. So on top, you can see the Courier New content looks like this. So when you take out the printout is going to be very, very light, and sometimes it is not visible properly. So it is always better, whenever you are writing the code, turn it to Courier New bold font and then make it bold. Then only it will appear right. And the minimum size of the code font should be 11. Ideally, 11 should be the size of the font for all 11th and 12th class papers. So remaining portion of the paper should be normal trebuchet or Arial font or Verdana font. Wherever you have a code or wherever you have some keyword mentioned in the paragraph also, make sure that you change the font of that into Courier New. The advantage of having fixed width font or Courier New font is that in Courier New as well as fixed width font, all the letters starting from A to Z or all the digits starting from 0 to 9 contain identical width and height. Whereas all other fonts, if you notice here in the beginning only, if you notice the very first line which is seen by you here, look at the width occupied by W and look at the width occupied by I. They are different. W is carrying more width and I is carrying very little width. And that is the reason whenever you will be formatting any content in code, it will not be aligned with the remaining part of the code. So it is always advisable to make sure that your font is Courier New and it is bold. Next, while choosing names for identifier in the program or code as part of the question, keep the following in mind. Should be short and meaningful. Avoid underscore, because sometimes underscore is not printed properly. And if it is not printed properly, they think that there is a space in between 2 words. So avoid underscore. Keep its first letter uppercase and remaining small case, so that you just need to avoid 3 keywords which are starting with capital alphabets. First is true, second is false, and third is none. You don't have to remember all the keywords all the time while using the variable naming. So if you are keeping the first alphabet capital and remaining as small, you just have to make sure that your identifier name is not matching with only these 3, and it can be anything. Avoid built-in as names of your identifier. However, it will not make any difference in the logic, but it will create confusion for the children. So that is why we should avoid built-ins to be used as names of identifier. Another thing very important is use common names which children can identify and children can relate to. Do not use complicated names or unheard names. Use digits only when there are more than one required in continuity. Otherwise, there is no need to use digits also in names. Now, here are few examples. If you look at all the examples are very, very familiar, and it is very, very common to use such kind of names. For example, name, amount, marks, pay, tax, profit, loss, average, max, min. Just notice here, wherever I am using max, min, the first letter is capital, and that is why it is not matching with the standard built-in max and min functions. Big, fact, num, number, val, value, m1, m2. So wherever you think that there are in continuity, some variables have to be defined, then you can make use of digits. Otherwise, it is not needed. So you can have m1, m2, m3, and so on, or a1, a2, a3, or so on. This kind of thing you can do. Then city, address, DOB for date of birth, DOJ for date of joining. So these are also commonly used naming conventions. TXT for any text entry, STR for any text entry, brand, model, type, color, shape, size, length, breadth, height, mode, up, down, step, forward, backward, discount, rate, price, quantity, and subject. So all these are very, very common words, and make use of these words which children can immediately relate to. Do not use any words which are not used in the day-to-day life. As soon as you will be using a complicated word, the child will get lost in those names rather than looking at the logic which you are trying to ask from him. Next, avoid too much of maths in calculation. Try to limit calculations around basic maths operations and the operations as mentioned in the syllabus only. And write a code type questions. If calculation or formula required, it is suggested to provide the calculation of formula as part of the question itself. We should aim to test the programming skills, that is syntax and logic implementation, and not the mathematics. This is an example where you can see the similar kind of thing happening. Write a user-defined function in Python to find and return area of a cylinder where radius r and height h are passed as parameters. Note, the formula for calculating area of cylinder is this. So we do not expect them to remember the formula of area of cylinder. Provide this formula because we are not testing his mathematical skills here. We are testing his programming and implementation of the logic in the code. So that is very, very important for you to note. These 2 points are very, very important, and you have to keep it in mind. One, be narrow-minded while framing questions, and be open-minded while expecting the answers. These 2 points are very, very important for you to remember. When you are preparing a question paper, keep the syllabus in front of you. Do not try to go beyond the syllabus anywhere. Whatever terms mentioned in the syllabus, make sure that you are making use of only those topics and subtopics. Do not go beyond the domain of the CBSE syllabus or sample papers. Sample papers are not out, so as soon as they will come out, we have to keep that also as part of our domain. And what is the meaning of open-minded? When the child is responding back and child knows more, and if he is writing something beyond, we should accept it, provided it is correct. So do not restrict the domain of answers within the syllabus, that is sample papers. Do not deduct marks if someone has answered question differently unless steps clearly specified in them. So sometimes we specify how to go about the logic, and if that is given and if the child is not following that, then you have to deduct marks. But provided if it is not given and the child has solved it with some different method, and that method is little advanced and not part of the syllabus, then you have to accept. Now, one more very important point here: encourage students to explore extra during day-to-day practical exercises and project work. At the same time, suggest them to write simple and straight answers during their public examinations, like their class 12th board examination is a public examination in which the person who is going to check your paper will not be predictable. We don't know who is going to check the paper and where the papers will go. And that is why we should restrict the answering of questions to the way it is taught or is simple to be explained. So basically, children should not be at disadvantage if some response goes beyond the scope of knowledge of paper checker. So we never know who is going to check the paper, and sometimes we also might not know about certain concept because Python is evolving language, and we might be doing it something, trying out something, and accordingly we have taught them. And at the time the child is appearing for paper, and at the time when he was preparing through some online resources, and he found some solution which might be little advanced. So it is not necessary that even we are aware of it. So that is why we should tell them that while responding in the public examinations, they have to restrict their intelligence. They have to write simple and straight answers. Now, as far as class 12 computer science paper is concerned, we have 40 marks Python programming and 10 marks computer networks and 20 marks database management system. As the sample paper is not out, we are not aware exactly how it is going to be structured. But yes, there will be some definition questions, there will be some difference questions, there will be some output questions, there will be some syntax error questions, and there will be some expression evaluation question, and there will be some short programming question, and there will be some long programming question. That is already going to be known to us. So this is the beginning part of the syllabus where we are talking about revision of basics of Python covered in class 11. This portion has to be done very, very well because the first part of the question paper will be emphasizing on this only. In spite it is going to be very simple, they have to be very careful while writing their answers. The very first question from the syllabus can be asked as write 4 main features of Python, or write 2 main features of Python, depending on it is a 1-marker question or 2-marker question. So we expect any of the following answers, and much child might write things little differently, which will mean the similar kind of thing. So we have to accept that. Then there will be definitely some questions based on tokens, because tokens are very, very specific and important part of any language. So in Python too. So Python breaks each logical line, that is true for any language, into a sequence of elementary lexical components known as tokens. And here the tokens are identifiers, keywords, operators, delimiters, literals. Now I am going to tell you how that earlier explanation of mine was true. Just notice this kind of explanation, like a name which is used to identify a variable, a function, a class, a module, or other object. Just notice here, there are 3 things which are marked with yellow and 2 things which are marked with pink. The things which are marked with yellow are those things which are known to them, and that is why when they are writing their answer, we are telling them this definition. This definition goes like this: a name which is used to identify a variable, function, or module. But when they are answering, if they write a name which is used to identify a class or an object, that is also correct. So this is what I was telling you. What we are teaching is narrow-minded. That means strictly as per the curriculum. And when they are writing their answers, their responses will be flexible, and we accept. Now, what is an identifier? Which starts with a letter or an underscore followed by 0 or more letters, A to Z, underscores, or digits 0 to 9. Lowercase and uppercase letters are distinct. That is already known to everyone. And this kind of question can come from this particular portion where we are asking, out of the following, which all can be considered as valid names for identifiers in Python. And all of us are already giving such kind of questions, and this is a very interesting kind of question, and most of the children give right answer for such kind of questions. Next is keywords. If you look at this keyword, this list of keyword is coming from 3.8. Out of this, some of them are marked with green, which are false, none, and true, which are the only keywords which are starting with capital letters and part of our curriculum. The pink ones are the operators. Along with this, we have one more operator which is shown in yellow because this is a membership operator and these are your logical operators. In blue are those keywords which are other than these three and logical and membership operators, which are in our course. All those which are shown in white have to be considered if they are responding back in terms of their answer, any of this as keyword, if mentioned by them in the answer, should be acceptable. Whereas while framing the question, we have to restrict our question within the colored keywords only. We should not use the keywords which are mentioned in white, except try here. Try is also supposed to be colored here. Try and accept both of them because we'll be making use of these two also while using them in files. So let me put colors here. So all those left here in white will not be part of our questions, but their responses might be there that we have to accept as. Next is operators. So if you look at operators here, in yellow, you have all arithmetic operators. In green, what you see are all your relational operators. And whatever are left in white, once again, when we are framing questions, we have to keep only those operators which are present in the colored boxes. And while taking the responses, we can accept all those which are present in white also. Out of this, the questions can come like this: out of the following, which all can be considered as valid expressions in Python? So if you look at the bottom, there are 8 different expressions. Some of them are valid ones and some of them are invalid ones. Like first one is valid because float can operate with star and integer, it will work. But the second one, if you see, it is a string operating with plus and integer, it will not work, so it will fail to execute in Python. Third one will be valid because here when we'll say 7 into hello, hello will be printed 7 times, or hello will be present 7 times. Then 2, 3 plus a, will it be valid? Any one of you? If we say 2, 3 plus a, will it be valid?
No, sir.
No,
I think
Mukesh.
so.
No, sir.
No, no.
It won't work. But if we want it to work, we simply have to enclose a inside pair of square brackets, then it will start working. So it will simply add that a also as part of the first list. Next one is 3 multiplied by 2, 3. Will it work? And if it will, what will be the result?
2, 3, the set will be repeated twice.
And it will be a tuple or a list?
Sorry, it will be a tuple.
It will be a tuple.
100% correct. So when we say toy into 6.5, we saw 7 into hello is working. Toy into 6.5 will work or not?
No, it will give error because 6.5 is a floating point value. It have an integer.
Yes, 100%. So in the same way, we have one more expression. Obviously, this is going to work. 77% 10 plus 2 will work. If we write a colon 40, which is a dictionary, multiplied by 2, will it work?
No, sir.
Dictionary will not work. Reason very simple is, in dictionary, the keys are unique.
Unique.
So if it will work, it will say a into 40, a into 40, a into 40, and that is going to be a colon 40, a colon 40, a colon 40 will not be allowed. And that is why it is going to show you error. So multiplication will work with tuple and list because in that repeated value can be present. In dictionary, it will not work because the repeated keys cannot be present in the dictionary. And that is the reason it is going to show an error. I hope it is fine. Next, we move to delimiters. Once again, in delimiter, you look at the colored boxes and white boxes. We have all those which are in our course present in the colored boxes, and those which are not in our course, which are they are present in white boxes. So all these are known as delimiters. Now, the ones which are in green, these are also known as shorthand operations in Python. So they perform arithmetic operations on the same variable with another variable. So that is another thing. And dot can also appear in real numbers. So that is a different thing. So one dot operator you can see while putting the name of the function and then name of the module. So you write a dot b bracket something. One is at that point of time. Another, you see the dot operator present as part of floating point numbers also. So that is not delimiter at that particular point of time. Last two rows which you see here has augmented assignment operators. Lexically are delimiters, but also perform an operation because they are going to turn into Python shorthand operators. Apart from that, the following characters have special meaning as part of other tokens. Single quote and double quotes are used in strings. Hash is used while specifying the comment line, and then backslash is used at the time of making the continuation of statement in the next line. So these are, now when we talk about literals, here the literals are 432 is considered as integer literal, 3.1416 is a floating point literal, 6.34j, now it is not in course. Once again I repeat, if at all, while giving example, if the child is responding back with such kind of result, we have to accept. If we are asking, give example of literal, and if he writes this example only, then also you have to consider this. But while framing questions, your question should not carry any of this kind, right? Then in this one very important literal is missing. That literal is true and false. Now, true and false can be literal, can be keyword at the same time, right? So true, false comes in the category of keywords, and at the time when we are assigning it with something, then it turns into literal. Literal is in a way a constant value. In the same way, when you look at in is a keyword, but at the same time in is membership operator also. Then you have and or not. These are three keywords, but at the same time, they are operators also. Now, there are some values which are mix of different literals and delimiters. For example, the content of list is formed with the help of literals of different types and in combination with some other delimiters. For example, in case of list, we have square braces. In case of tuple, we have round braces. And in case of dictionary, we have curly braces. So they form another data value. So it is a single data value which is containing mix of different type of literals and delimiters. Now, we can have questions like write the names of 4 tokens. So we have specifying how many tokens, because if it is going to be a 2-mark question, so we should have some justified marks also for that. So if we are specifying write the names of any 4 tokens which are supported by Python, it will be better than you simply write names of tokens. So somebody will write 3 tokens, somebody will write 4 tokens, somebody will write all 5 tokens. So that should not happen. So whenever we are framing questions, if we are specifying exactly what is the count of answer we are looking for, it will help us to check it properly, and we are justified also while checking. Next kind of question can be framed like categorize the following as literals, keywords, identifiers, and operators. So the first one can be categorized as keyword as well as literal. The second one will be categorized as literal. Third one will be operator. Fourth one will be identifier. The fifth one is going to be considered as operator. Then sixth one is going to be identifier. Next is going to be keyword, and the last one is once again literal. So we can have 1 mark question, 2 mark question, depending on how many values you are showing to them in the question. So if you are framing a 1 mark question, you can give 4 options. If you are giving 2 mark question, you can give 8 options, but not more than that, because this question should not carry marks weightage more than 2. Another kind of question which we can think of framing is, what is the precedence of the following arithmetic operators in Python? So you can list down the operators you are mentioning, and they can just put them in order and show it to you. So, but while putting them in order, you have to tell them that some of the operators are carrying equal or equal place, like plus and minus will be carrying the same position in the precedence. Whichever will come first and will be executed first. Out of this, star is going to be have topmost precedence, and then after that, star, percentage, integer division, and float division will be having the same place of precedence. So that will be the second, and plus minus will be last. But at the same time, if the child is saying, no, minus has the biggest precedence because it can be treated as a unary operator, that is 100% correct. We have to accept that answer too. Question number 2D. Here, this is a different...
Mukesh, sorry to disturb you here. Sorry to interrupt you. The previous question 1C, when he said precedence of the operator, child can write the precedent in the descending order also. In that case, nothing is mentioned. I have to give marks.
Yeah, we have to. But at the time when you are teaching, this should be told to them. No,
if we make it write the preceding in ascending order and descending order, then the question becomes crystal clear. Then
yes,
there is no
100%.
confusion in the
100%.
No,
100%. But increasing or decreasing also have a two different type of interpretations of it. Okay, so it all depends on how it is interpreted. So in any order, if it is following a sequence right, then I think we should accept it.
Precedence itself means in ascending order.
So let's look at the next question, which we can think of having. Find and write the data type for each of the following Python expressions. So when we will evaluate these kind of expressions, what kind of data type of the result we are going to have, that is what we need to find out. So it is always turning into the higher data type. So if I am saying true plus 5, 5 is integer, true is Boolean. When they are added together, it is going to produce integer. So the final result will be 6. 6 is going to be integer type data. So we have to specify the data type as int. The second one is j and sen. However, one is written with double quote, second is written with single quote. The final result will remain string. That will be j sen. And the data type of that will be string. Then we have 45.5 adding to 900. Now, when we are adding float with int, obviously float is considered as the higher data type as compared to integer. So final result is going to turn into float. The fourth one, where we are multiplying 4 with a string, that is love, the final result will be love 4 times in the content of the string, and that is why it will remain str, that is string. When we are talking about not false, the result of not false is going to be true. True is going to be bool data type. Then 23.5 integer division 5 is going to give you what result? I would like to get the answer from you. What will be the result? 23.5.
Sir, result
float.
without
decimal. Float. Answer will be float.
100%, right? The answer will be float. Basically, if you are operating with float, the result is going to be float. However, there'll be nothing beyond the decimal point. So it will be decimal point next to decimal point. It will be always 0. Irrelevant of whether it is 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, it will be removed from there because it is a result of integer division. Okay. Next is 8.2 plus 2. It is obviously float. It is same as the third example. Then we have 23 and then equality operator, relational operator, and then 46 divided by 2. Whether it will be equal or not, that will be my first question. And the second question will be, what will be the data type? So what do you think is going to be?
Data
No,
type will
sir.
be bull. Data type bull.
Data type bull. What will be the result? True or false?
It will be true.
False.
False.
False. False.
False.
It
It
will
will
be
be
true,
true.
sir.
It will be
False.
true.
Yeah.
It
It
will
will
be
be
true.
true.
No.
It will be
If you are comparing 10 with 10.0, it is same. When we are comparing 3.0 with 3, it is same. So equality operator looks at its value, right? The value point is identical for 10.0 as well as 10. So here 23, when it is compared with 23.0, will be compared as same. And that is why the result will be true. Next, we can have the questions of difference like this. Write 2 points of difference between keywords and identifier. Write 2 points of difference between arithmetic and comparison operators. Write 2 points difference between literals and keywords. Write 2-point difference between int and float data types. So these kind of questions, when we specify that there will be 2 points of difference or 1 point of difference, depending on how many marks you are allocating to it. If you are just giving 1 mark for this question, it can be 1 point of difference. If you want to have 2-marker question, it is advisable that you go for at least 2 points. And always the second point here should be considered as an example. So make sure that the question is framed in such a way that child writes 1 point of difference in English and another point of difference, he writes example in Python, so that both the points are covered in that, right? So your question should be framed in such a way that 1 point of difference he is writing in English and the second point of difference he is writing as an example in Python code. So that will help you also to check very fast. Next, okay. Then knowledge-based questions, we can, if we like this time it is told that we'll be having a lot of MCQ questions in the paper, final paper also. So we have to start thinking about these questions. Now, while framing such kind of questions, you have to give the options which are very close to each other and should not be completely different in any sense, so that the child has to think before answering. For example, in the first one, you see which of the following valid relational operators in Python. So if I'm putting here other than operator, if I'm putting here one of the option as literal or one of the option as some identifier, one of the operator as something else, then obviously it will be the clear-cut answer. So here, when if I'm asking the question about relational operator, I'll just try to put here operators only, and one of them will not be relational operator. Sorry, so one of them will be a relational operator. Sorry. So and is going to be an operator which is logical operator, star star is an arithmetic operator, less than equal to is a relational operator, and slash slash is once again arithmetic operator. So all of them are operator at least, and out of them we are asking one of them is supposed to be valid relational operator. In the next example also, if you look at which of the following is not valid keyword in Python. So here I will not be writing any option which is not known to him. We have to figure out the option which will be told to him 10 times in the class. Like if you notice in this question, I have written else if as the thing. And if you recall in class 11th, at the time when we are doing with the if else statement, we clearly tell them there is nothing like else if existing in Python as keyword. And that is why you have to write elif over there. So figure out which word is specifically told to them this is not there in the keyword, because we don't expect them all the time to keep all the keywords in mind, but there are some keywords which are specifically told to them that this is not the keyword. So figure out what is that word going to fit in over here. So here you can look at the def, false, in are the keywords whereas else if is specifically told to them that this is not a keyword because alternative of this is elif in Python. Then the next multiple choice is which of the following is not part of token in Python. Once again, we are trying to be as close as possible because as a building unit, functions are also part, but they are not considered as tokens. And that is why we have written here as one of the option as functions, right? Which is very close. Basically, that is also helping in building the program. Many functions make a program. So that is very close answer. And that is what we are trying to do here. Next is which of the following is not part of math module in Python. So once again, you have to figure out which is closer to math. Random is something very close, which plays around with numbers. So that is why the example has come from random module rather than going to something which is completely different than maths. Then we can have some questions from understanding point of view. Those questions were direct knowledge point of view, if they know or they don't know. Here, they have to apply some understanding, like which of the following is not valid identifier in Python. So when I'm talking about identifier, we have to follow certain rules and we have to check which is not satisfying that rule, and that is what we have to kick out over here. So very close answers, we have to figure out which one. So here D is the answer, which very specifically told to them that your identifier cannot start with a digit. Next one is which of the following is not valid expression in Python. So here also very clearly told to them that strings can't operate with addition and integer values together. That is going to be error, and that is what we have to put here. Then which of the following will evaluate to false in Python? Here I have kept similar kind of example. All of them are resulting in true or false. So this is once again emphasized here that just notice all of them are giving the result as true and false. Something, it should not start resulting in 300 or 400. So all the expressions are giving true or false result. So one of them is giving you false as the result. So here a lot more chances will be there that some people will treat the B part also as false. Very close answer, right? But the correct answer is here not true. Then debugging type of question. Now here only syntax error questions should be there. And your knowledge of C++ for debugging should not work here, because if you will start giving those kind of questions, you will be having so many exceptions also included in that. So make sure that if you are giving a syntax error question, it should not have exception related questions like name error, value error, data error. All those kind of errors should not be part of division by zero error. All those kind of things can be handled by the programmer with the help of try except. So those do not come under the category of syntax error in Python. In Python, the syntax errors are very, very distinct. Like first expression you can look at, 100 is equal to Q, is going to be definitely wrong as syntax in Python. It is always variable is equal to variable, constant or expression. It is not like constant is equal to variable or expression is equal to variable. And that is the reason we have to correct it as Q is equal to 100. The second one is input always returns a result, and that has to be dumped somewhere, or it can be part of parameter of some other function. In this case, none of that is happening, and that is why we need to correct it as P is equal to input value P. The next one is colon is missing in the if statement. And the next one is indentation is not proper. So indentation has to be fixed. So these are the 4 errors. Now, one very important point, if it is a 2-marker question, do not give 3 errors or 2 errors or 1 error. That will confuse the child. Or if you have 2 errors which are of the similar nature, that can be considered as 1. In certain questions, if we make correction at one point, normally in theory paper, we give marks for that. So avoid that, but if it is there, then it is okay. For example, if I have written 100 is equal to Q, in the next line I would have written 10 is equal to P, so that he will not immediately guess. So any of the correction done by the child, it means that the child knows the concept that variable is equal to constant is correct and constant is equal to variable is not correct. So very important is exceptions should be avoided in the syntax error questions in Python. Next is when we have one marker output questions, we can give some one marker output questions also. So they can be of this kind of questions where a lot of calculation is not there. Minor calculation is there and the result is coming out like A is equal to 10, B is equal to 20, C is equal to 30, and then we are writing A plus B into C minus 5, where they are simply applying the precedence of operator and then finding out the result. Next one is we are simply applying the logic of Boolean, where A greater than B. If it is, then not of that will be false or true depending on the values of A and B. The next one is based on SCP and END concept. And the fourth one is simply a for loop where only 2 lines are displayed. So half mark each. If they write the first line right, they get half mark. And if they write second line also correct, they get another half mark for that. Then we can have a simple code slicing where before 4 everything, that is 2, 5, 4, 8 will be displayed. And the reverse of a string will be very good example for one marker question. Then we can have a question of this kind that you have a tuple, you have a list, and if you concatenate both of them, you will be getting the result as a list. Higher data type is list, so it is going to turn into list containing 1, 2, A, B. So these are all one marker output questions. Then we can have 2 marker output questions in which we can put functions also, and along with that concept of list. So you can see here, we are simply doing some manipulation in the list. There are 2 important concepts which are getting tested here, the parameter passing and the mutable concept, that whatever changes you have done to the list are reflected out here. So if we have made any change, ideally, if it would have been immutable data type, it would not have changed. And if it is a mutable data type, it will change. So that is what is conveyed here. So both the things are tested. One is parameter passing, another, the concept of mutability is tested. You can have a simple question like this in 2 marker question, where we are simply passing a default parameter and doing simple calculation as p plus equal to 5, and we are checking whether outside the function the content is getting changed or not. So that is not changing because it is a immutable parameter. The next is a 2 marker output question where a similar kind of concept is there, where we are displaying the content inside the function as well as outside the function, and the content will remain same because we are testing it on mutable parameter. Then we have find and write output. This is a 3 marker question, so you have to increase the complication level here. So we have a dictionary which is part of list, so it is a nested concept. So a list is containing 3 dictionaries, and in each dictionary you have length and breadth of various objects. So with the help of update, we are making change in the original data of the dictionaries which are part of list, and then we are simply displaying length, breadth, and area. So you can see here the output comes in 6 lines. That means checking is going to be very easy. The first line gives half mark, and then 2 lines give 1 mark, 3 lines give 1.5, 4 lines give 2 marks, and 5 lines give 2.5, and then if all 6 lines are correct, they get full 3 marks. So while writing such kind of questions, you have to make sure that you inside your mind, your marking scheme is also ready. So at the time when you are checking, you are not investing time and energy in deciding on whether to give marks, this much marks or that much marks. So it is already clear at the time when you are making the paper. So while checking, you don't have to invest time and energy in thinking about how much to give, how much not to give. Then in analytical question, a similar kind of question which we used to have in C++ can be there, like a rand range question. So there we used to have random question. So similar kind of question, we expect that should come or that may come in the sample paper. So it has nothing new. You already know about the concept of this, so I'm just skipping this. We move to 3-marker programming questions. So we may have your programming questions should be framed in such a way that it is well described and well explained, and you have no further explanation required for this kind of question. Like if I'm saying write a user-defined function in Python Fibo n to display the first n terms of Fibonacci series of numbers starting from 0 and 1. Why specifying 0 and 1 is important here? So when you will go and search on Google about Fibonacci series, there are number of Fibonacci series. You can start Fibonacci series from any 2 numbers and you can grow it further. And that is why it is better that if we are talking about the standard Fibonacci series, which starts from 0 and 1, we should specify that it should start from 0 and 1, so that we do not have any other answer from the child. Then write a function in Python fact m and n to find and display all the factors of integers m and n passed as parameters. Not then write a function in Python is prime to find if the number n passed as parameter is prime number or not. Return true if it is prime, return false if it is not. Normally, we leave the question over here, and that is where the problem comes. Some people will display inside it is a prime. Some people will come back and display it outside it is prime. So those kind of confusion will be resolved if we clearly specify whether it is to be returned or whether it is to be displayed, a message to be displayed or a value to be returned. So that should be very clear in the question itself. In the next question, you can see it is a series question where we are saying write a Python function sum n to find and return sum of the following series for x and n passed as parameters. So you can look at the series, which is x plus x squared plus x cubed up to n terms. So if everything is specified in the question, the variation of answers will be very, very little. If it is not very well explained, then the variation will be there and you have to give marks for everything. That should not happen. That becomes a very, very confusing for the teacher as well as for the child. If we talk about the 4-marker questions, we can have these 4-marker question as the earlier pattern of the questions from the data structure. Like you can have a question as write a function in Python push s comma value and pop s for performing push and pop operations as a stack, assuming the parameters s as a list and value as an integer value for implementing the stack. So it should be very well explained that term. The next one is write a function swap alter p to swap all the adjacent elements of a list p in pairs. Example is supported so that they should not misunderstand this question in any other manner. Because whenever you have any such kind of manipulation question, your language may or may not give the complete detail of what exactly you are looking for. So it is always better to support that with sample output. Then from text file question, you will be having a similar kind of 3-marker or 2-marker question. So it will be, we presume that it should be a simple one. So write a function, show words in Python to read the content of a text file, new.txt, and display each word of the file in separate lines. For example, if the content is my friend is the best, then the function should display output as this. So writing this is very important. So if you leave that question at this point, like I see in many question papers of various schools, they leave this question over here. So whether the child has understood the question very well or not, that is not very clear. So it is always better to support it with sample output. This is another question. Write a function disp sum in Python to read the content of a text file old.txt and display lines which are starting with letter capital T. Then example is given here. So you have the file contents, and file content should be meaningful. It should not be just random. Like in this, all the lines are connected with each other. The first is my friend is the best. The best out of him is his dedication, and he is my role model. So out of this, what we want to display is the best about him is his dedication. Then if we talk about binary file question, here binary file question will be framed little differently than the previous ones. Write a function search item in Python to read and search for item matching with a particular INO from pickled file. Pickled file means binary file, stock.dat, and display details of same. Assuming the pickled file is containing nested list of items with each list having the data as shown in the sample as 102, pen, 200, 34, where 102 is the item number, pen is the item name, 200 is the quantity, and 34 is price. So accordingly, he knows that the very first element of the list which will come out from the pickled file is going to be treated as item number, and it will be matched for searching. In the same way, we'll be doing for CSV also. We'll be writing write a function find sec A in Python to read and display details of those students who are in section A from CSV file student.csv, assuming the CSV file containing each row with sample content as A21 Arun 35, where A is section, 21 is roll number, Arun is student name, and 35 is marks. Then in unit 3, we'll be having similar kind of questions along with some new questions we are expecting, because the marks weightage is now different than the earlier one. So here we'll be having, we may have questions like which aggregate function will display the cardinality of a table. So that is going to be count. Write two SQL DML commands. So they can write any two DML command. It will be a one marker. Categorize the following into DDL and DML categories. So they will be specifying insert into belongs to DML, alter table belongs to DDL, create table belongs to DDL, and update belongs to DML. Which of the following are valid SQL functions? So here they learn about only count, max, min, sum. So they will figure out which one are not valid and which are valid ones here. Then we'll be having a question of similar kind as we used to have, like degree and cardinality of the above table, which attributes is the most suited for primary key. That kind of question might be there. Then differentiate between Python database cursor method fetch one and fetch all. Write appropriate example of each to illustrate the difference. Now here I would like to emphasize on is that connectivity question as such will not come in the theory exam. However, fetch one and fetch all from the same domain might appear as a question in the exam. Then we have in 3-marker question, we might have a simple output kind of question where a table is there and we'll be given some SQL queries and we have to answer as output of these queries. Then we might have question of the similar kind which we used to have in the previous papers, that is write SQL queries A to D, which are based on the following tables, and there'll be some description of the question will be given, and you have to write the select query or update query depending on what is given here. So it may be one table based questions or two table based questions. So depending on the number of queries asked, your mark weightage will be there. And the final weightage will be decided once the sample paper is going to be out. Question, we used to have 6 parts for SQL question of this kind. So it entirely depends on what kind of shape sample paper is going to be in. As far as network is concerned, apart from the usual questions, which we might have questions of this kind, which of the following protocols is best suited for uploading and downloading files from remote server or site? So they have to just give one name. So obviously this is going to be a 1-marker question. Then fill in the blanks with appropriate words. A dash is an example of wireless medium of data communication. Dash is a medium of wired medium of data communication. Here they can write any wired or any wireless exam. Then write full forms of the following. We used to have this question also in the network. So these are interesting and simple questions for students to write. So these are going to be 2-marker question because there are 4 full forms to be given. Then differentiate between viruses and worms. That is going to be a common question. And data communication threats. So there'll be 2 different points here about virus and worms. So it is going to be a 2-marker. What are cookies used in browser? So they'll be writing what are the cookies first, and then they'll be giving 1 advantage and 1 disadvantage, which is going to be half mark each for cookies. So cookies are useful because it saves time and energy for us because it carries the previous details of our form submissions. And these are dangerous because through cookies, any Trojan horse can take our data and give it to some remote server. So it is good as well as bad. However, as computer science teachers, none of us should save cookies for long. We should keep killing the cookies which are getting saved in our browsers. With this, today's session is over. I hope I was able to do justice to the aim of this particular meet. And the idea was completely not to share a lot of questions, but share certain ideas which are useful and beneficial for all of us. And once again, I would like to mention and tell you that in all these meets, Mr. Mohit.dey and Mr. Rajesh Sethi have been integral part of the entire work. And I would like all of you to thank both of them, along with one of our student who has contributed the introductory music every time he sends a new music to us, and we play it in the beginning of the meet. So I hope all of you enjoy that also. As always, I tell you that we have a group with the name Python for +2, and if you're not part of it, join it, because there are a number of computer science teachers who share their ideas over there. And along with that, there is a blog which is with the name csamazingresources.blogspot.com. There also the same content is put, but this entire resource set is only for the teachers, and that is why on my Facebook profile or Mohit's Facebook profile or Rajesh's Facebook profile, you will not find any of these contents visible, right? Deliberately, these are not shared over there because we don't want it to be shared directly with the students, because these materials are specifically meant for the teachers. In spite it is on public domain, we do not advertise it a lot so that it remains in the teacher's custody. Thank you very much.